So we've got Bill in New Jersey, and this may be the last call.
Bill, you're on the air.
Hi, how are you?
Just
Hi.
fine.
Good. The first thing, I have a problem with the burden of proof, and here's basically in a nutshell. I've heard on the show before that if I make the affirmative claim, I have the burden of proof, and if you make the affirmative claim, then you have the burden of proof. And it just doesn't seem to make sense to me. Because let's say that I say I can fly, and that I sprouted wings last night and flew to Chicago and back. Mm-hmm. And you can say to me, I don't believe you. And I have the burden of proof to prove it.
Yep.
But if you say, Bill, you're full of it, you didn't do that, now somehow you have to disprove it. And you can never disprove it because I can keep changing the scenario. I can say, oh, well, you don't have wings. I say, well, I made them disappear and I make them reappear.
Right.
I keep coming up with crazier and crazier things, and you could never pin me down.
Exactly.
Sure, which is why a position of skepticism is what makes the most sense.
But you will find people will say, see, it's never been disproved. And if you go on a lot of websites, people say, see, the skeptics have never disproved us. Try as they may, they've never proved us wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, it's still a matter of what claim are you making if you're on the skeptical side. For example, and the response you gave is, I think, the perfect explanation for why God is not considered a scientific concept. It's unfalsifiable, right? You said for every objection
as is my thing about wings last night.
Well, for every objection that a skeptic comes up with for how you could not possibly have sprouted wings and flown the previous evening, you can manufacture an excuse for that. So this is why,
exactly.
if you were to tell us that you did that you sprouted wings and flew to Chicago last night, Russell and I would say, we don't believe you. Please show us your evidence, and we would leave it. And we would leave it at that.
You never proved me wrong.
And we'd leave it at we'd leave it at that.
Okay.
We and at that point, if we were to say there is absolutely no conceivable way that you could have flown to Chicago last night, then that puts the burden of proof on us, and then round the mulberry bush we go. So it's now bringing this back to religious questions. Some of us, as individuals, we may take what's called the strong atheist position personally, but for my sake, whenever I'm arguing, I almost always argue the weak atheist position simply because it's sufficient to defend atheism. I just ask the believer what he believes and why he believes it, and I listen to his explanation, and then I explain why it does or doesn't work for me in response. If we were to say there's no conceivable way in which such and such a thing could exist, we would then have to back ourselves up. We could probably do it to one degree or another successfully, but it still puts an unnecessary burden on the skeptic. When if you can Google it. I mean, right there in Wikipedia, philosophical burden of proof.
I mean, the thing about the burden of proof is that it's really about what would convince somebody to change their mind? Because you can come at me and say, I definitely believe that there's a God. And I can say, I don't believe that there's a God. And then if you don't want me to change my mind and I don't want you to change your mind, then we just part ways as friends and that's it. But if you want to make a convincing claim that says, I believe in my God and you should too, that's where burden of proof comes in.
All right. Well, then make an affirmative claim again.
Right. If I were to say you're an idiot for believing in God, which I don't think, but if I were to try to make that case and say you should quit believing in God, you're right. I could not prove there is no God. I could make some probably convincing points about why you shouldn't believe stuff without evidence, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to force you to change your opinion. I don't
think you can disprove just about anything. You can't disprove that I didn't sprout wings last night.
No, but I mean, that's why you should care about believing only things for good reasons, because otherwise you'd just be super gullible. You'd go around believing that people are sprouting wings and flying all the time. You'd believe that you can fly, and then you'd maybe step off the Empire State Building, and the results would be kind of ugly, because there is a reality out there. right?
Right.
And I've had this similar argument, between a Christian and I, where the Christian was asserting very confidently that everything was a belief, that there are no facts, there's no truth, everything is a belief. And I tried to, say, well, go ahead, walk across a crowded freeway with your eyes closed and see how that, believing you won't get hit, and you'll see how that works.
But we're completely out of time. If you can
Thank
hold
you.
on a minute, we can continue this conversation, but off the air.
I'd be happy to do that.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank
and
you.
that's our show.
Thank you, crowd. Thank you.
Hey, guys. Thanks, Martin. It's been fun, and thank you, Dan Finke. Check out his blog. Bye, everyone.